Read the manual. It's right there for you. A lot of these things where there's no information like how to pen test it, there's plenty of information on like how to do QA testing on it. You can find really valuable things as a pen tester in those materials. What happens when you send in too much data and overflow the buffer? What happens when you send in too many requests? Those are things that QA probably looked at in their QA testing. Read the manual for it, and you'll have a huge leg up.
Hi, I'm Kyser Clark, and welcome to The Hacker's Cache, the show that decrypts the secrets of offensive security one bite at a time. Every week, I invite you into the world of ethical hacking by interviewing leading offensive security practitioners. If you are a penetration tester, bug bounty hunter, red teamer, or blue teamer who wants to better understand the modern hacker mindset, whether you are new or experienced, this show is for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I have Noah Pack, who has about 4.5 years of IT and cybersecurity experience. His first full-time cybersecurity role was cybersecurity engineer. From there, he migrated into a threat hunting and SOC analyst position, and then now currently works as a full-time penetration tester. For education, he has a Bachelor of Science in Cybersecurity. For certifications, it's a very long list, so get ready for it. He has these are all GX certs. I'll just throw that out there. So he has the GX Cloud Pentester, the Web App Pentester, the Pentester, the Certified Intrusion Analyst, the Python Coder, Certified Insight Handler, Security Essentials, Information Security Fundamentals, and so those are all the GX certs. And for non-GX, he has the CompTIA Pentest Plus, the COISA Plus, Project Plus, and Security Plus. He also has the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner and the ISC2 CC, that's Certified in Cybersecurity. So Noah, thank you so much for stopping in and hanging out with me and providing your insights and wisdom to the show. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and walk through your background.
Hey, I'm Noah. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me on your show. A little bit more about me. Um, I spoke at a couple conferences last year about 3D printing, pen test tools, like hacking stuff. Particularly kind of interested in space and satellite things lately. So I've been playing with the Hack RF. I've been playing with the Starlink that I got. I think there's a huge area of cyber kind of related to those things that's not really looked at as often as like traditional red teaming of Active Directory. Um, yeah, that's a little bit about me and my interests. And I'm impressed that you were able to list all my certifications there. I don't think I would have done that.
I try to throw out all the certs that everyone does because I have a lot of certifications and every single one of them takes a lot of work. So I try not to leave people's certs out when they have a large stack. I just like, you know what? They worked hard for this, so we're just gonna sit here and listen to the large stack.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was hard to get a lot of them.
Yeah, I always tell people like there's no easy certs, even the beginner level ones, and even when you have 10 certifications, you might fail your 11th one. Matter of fact, I had 16 certifications. I failed my 17th certification. It took me the 2 tries to get the SAL one from Try Hack Me. So even with 16 certs, like I still come across failures, because none of them's easy.
Yeah, I failed the GCIA the first time and the GPYC. So those are kind of my more recent ones. And my first attempt on both of them, I was not even that close.
Yeah, so let's talk about why you have so many certifications. So you are doing the SANS degree, and that is something that I kind of wish I did, to be honest with you. I wish I would have went through that and not did the degree I did, but because you got a lot of certifications out of it. So um, it seems like there's a lot of value there. You get all those certifications along the way. So, what would you say? Because you also went to another school before you graduated from SANS. So, what would you say is like the big difference? Obviously, there's a lot of certs involved, but what else like is a big differentiator between like a traditional degree and or a traditional school and going to the SANS Institute?
So I'd say there's a lot of differences between like where I started my degree at a brick and mortar university and the SANS degree programs. And brick and mortar university might be better for some people than SANS, or SANS might be better. For me, SANS was the clear choice. What made me choose SANS was that you're getting a GX certification with every class you take, and it's not like you're just getting it; you still have to earn it, obviously. But the classes are aligned with these certifications, and they treat the exam as the final exam of the course, and all of those courses are taught by somebody who's currently working in information security. So I think with cyber kind of being such a new field, there's kind of a shortage of universities that have professors who have worked in information security. And so I had some professors that their most recent kind of industry experience was they were a database admin in like the early 2000s. And so when they're trying to speak on pen testing or something else, they kind of fell a little bit short for me. And it's no fault of their own. They were probably just told by the dean that they've got to teach this class. But at SANS, those instructors are vetted. They create the course, and they're currently working. So a lot of them have their own consulting firms, or they have a full time job at like a big company.
Yeah, I actually forgot about that fact. Yeah, I do remember hearing or seeing somewhere that the instructors are currently working in the field, which is huge because, like you said, most
Yeah,
schools they have instructors who are former IT database admins, or like maybe they worked in cybersecurity a while back, but a lot of them, they're kind of retired and they're kind of just doing like the professor on as a side thing. I mean, they're just doing their
right.
free time in retirement. That happens a lot, and I feel like, and not to throw shade at my school, but I feel like some of my professors were in that category. Matter of fact, when I introduced myself to one of my when one of the classes started, I introduced myself, and the professor literally said like, "Oh, we have a lot to learn from you." I'm like, "Oh, isn't I supposed to be learning from you?" Like, you know
Exactly.
what I
I'm
mean?
paying to learn from you, man. Like,
Yeah,
and in most cases, it's a lot of money. So,
yeah. Speaking of money, that's actually what I'm curious about. So, with the SANS Institute, because like GX certs are like $10,000 a pop, right?
yes,
And you got 9 certifications. So, I mean, you do the math on that. That's like $90,000. Like, you didn't spend $90,000 in a degree, right? So, what's
no,
the cost of that degree path?
thankfully. So I'm not sure what it is right now. I graduated in, I think, July last year, and they've raised the prices a little bit since then. I think they adjust the prices every year, every couple of years, but it's still, I think, very reasonable to do the degree program, especially because a lot of employers will give you education credit, but they'll only let you spend that money on a degree program. So you can't use that benefit to pay for certifications or to pay for GIAC. But if you're doing this program, you can. And there's a huge population of people attending SANS who are former military. And so they're using things like the GI Bill to help pay for that school. And out of it, they're getting like 9 GX certifications.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was about to say that as a military vet myself, I always make sure I tell the military vets to use your GI Bill. And that's one of the things you can
Yeah,
use it on. I don't know where I saw it from, but there was some podcast I saw some military vet. He said, "Yeah, I got all these certifications for using my GI Bill." And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of wish I would have done that, but I got all my certs and my degree separately, which was like, I feel like double the work, but it was worth it in the end, though. Okay, before we dive into the rest of our main discussion, let's go ahead and dive into our rapid fire questions. So,
let's do it.
Noah, are you ready for the rapid fire round?
Okay, let's do it. I'm ready.
All right, so for those who are new to the show, Noah will have 30 seconds to answer 5 questions. If he answers all 5 questions in 30 seconds, he'll get a bonus 6 question unrelated to cybersecurity. His time will start as soon as I stop asking. the first question. Here we go. Noah, what is your favorite tool not many people know about?
Kismet.
Multiple certifications or a degree, which is more valuable to a cybersecurity career today?
Multiple certifications.
Do you think biometrics are secure?
Depends.
Favorite security conference?
SaintCon, without a doubt.
Best way to learn about new exploits?
By testing them out and reading about them.
Nice. That was 26 seconds. That
Oh,
was
yes.
a very good time. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
So, the bonus question, you can provide as much or as little explanation as you want to. You can even dodge a question and just skip it if you want to. If you don't feel like it's a conversation you want to have, that's okay too. Because this one's a little out of this world, literally. So,
Uh-oh.
if aliens visited Earth and asked for our leader, who should we send?
My coworker, his name's James. I think he'd be a great ambassador.
Do you want to provide any context there? Like why James? What?
Um, I have no idea, honestly. Just the other day, we had a conversation though where he said, kind of gave me his spiel about what he would say if he were to meet an alien, and I thought it was great. So that's
All
why,
right.
and that's all I'll give you.
That's that's a good enough reason right there. You thought it was great. That's a good reason right there. So for me, the first thing that came to my mind was Neil deGrasse Tyson. I think he would be a good one to send. And then, but I think it would just be kind of funny if we sent the history aliens guy. I'm
Yes,
holding my
he
hands down
deserves
like
it.
the meme.
Yeah,
I feel like he's more qualified than anybody. If we're gonna send
yes.
anybody, I feel like that he got to be it.
People have been
It,
making fun of him for years.
yeah,
He deserves a little validation if he's right.
yeah. But it's funny, but like like he's been a meme for a while now, and that's why it's funny. But like he'd be like, dude, this was never a meme. This was for real.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, there's probably some viewers that don't like. Man, he's talking about aliens. What the heck? It's all for fun. If you don't believe in aliens, then that's okay. I don't really know if I believe in aliens either. But that's another discussion for another time. Okay, so your most interesting response, I would say, let's just talk about multiple certifications or a degree. So obviously, both
Ooh.
of us have multiple certifications and a degree, and so I think we can provide a lot of information, a lot of value here for the viewers and listeners. So which is more valuable to a cybersecurity career today? You said multiple certifications. Why did you say multiple certifications over the degree?
So a little caveat, I do think both are great paths and they're good for different kind of things. But the reason I said multiple certifications is because in my head I'm thinking like OSCP, CISSP, and like AWS something. Like I think that would be a great trifecta of certifications to have, and it could really qualify you to get past a lot of HR filters and get some interviews. Um, the other thing is that like an OSCP and some of the SAN certifications, they're hands-on. You've really got to touch the keyboard and make it do the things that you want it to do if you're going to walk out with that certification. So I think those certifications really carry like quite a bit of weight.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you 100% there, and that would be the answer that I would give as well. I would say multiple certifications. I think just like you, I think that both of them are great to have, right? You want to so our my last guest said you want to tick all the boxes, and
Yeah.
in the last episode, and the more boxes you check off, the better off you are in landing a job or getting a new role. And that's what a degree is. That's what certifications are. They're check boxes. They're more than that, obviously, because like you said, like get OSCP. Like you just don't get an OSCP like by accident. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I
Yeah.
actually commented on LinkedIn. Someone was like, there was a post that talked about the OSCP, and then someone was like, "What about real world experience? What about the skills?" And I just commented, I'm like, "You don't get the OSCP without having skills. Like it's
Yeah.
not possible. You do not accidentally pass OSCP." So
Unless
yeah,
you're
you
like a
do need to have
savant,
real world
you know.
skills,
Yeah.
and that certification kind of proves you have real world skills, which is why they ask for this kind of certifications on pen testing and offensive security jobs. And like I said, if I had to pick one or the other, like if I had like, okay, it's one or the other, can I have multiple certs or have a degree? I think multiple certs are going to get you further. It's what's taught me way more. I've learned way more from the
Hmm.
certifications than I did from my degree. So if I had to choose one or the other, especially you can get multiple certifications for a fraction of the cost too. That's another reason why I think multiple
Yes. And in a
certifications is.
fraction of the same amount of time, you know. Like unless you're going to WGU or SANS or somewhere where it's self-paced, that degree is going to take you 4 years, you know.
Yeah, yep, and yeah, it's gonna be by the time this by the time this episode airs, I should already have my episode on, not my episode, but my YouTube video about college degrees. So I just finished my master's degree, and I have a lot to say because I know a lot of people are
Oh,
like, is a degree
congratulations.
worth it? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about that in episode. And like I said, if you're listening or watching, that YouTube video is probably already posted. Okay, so moving on. So you are currently a pen tester at an aerospace company, and you told me you work on some obscure stuff.
Yes.
Because there's no TTPs. That's tools, tactics, and procedures. For those who don't know, and you said you can't really go in depth, but I can understand. You know, you can't go in depth, but what mentality do you have like when you're on a day-to-day job, or like more specifically, like if let's say a viewer or listener, like they break into their first pen testing position and they get into something that's obscure like you, what advice could you give them when there's just not a lot of documentation on the type of pen testing you do?
Yeah. So I guess a little bit additional background. Yeah, is I work for an aerospace company. They make computers that go into airplanes,
The
drones,
UFOs.
satellites. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I haven't pen tested a UFO yet, but it's not off the table. And they don't communicate the same way as like Windows computer plugged into a network. They have their own protocols. Some of those would be ARINC protocols, like ARINC 429. There's also like some other protocols. One of them is called like MIL standard. But there, if you were to look up like pen testing ARINC, you'd probably find like 4 or 5 kind of semi-valuable articles about it and no tools. So some of those things you have to go into it and just really flex the hacker mindset. You have to understand, like, I guess going back a little bit, all these different pen testing classes I've done. So we mentioned earlier I have like Pen Test Plus and GPen and some stuff. At the beginning of every one of those classes, they talk about like the hacking methodology, and it's like scoping something out and then testing things, furthering your access, trying to exploit stuff, like maintaining access. You've got to take that and just run with it. Really try to apply it to whatever you're looking at, because that's the core of pen testing right there. That's why they have it at the beginning of all these classes, is because it's the most important part. The tools will change, tactics will change, like exploits, new exploits will come out. Some of them, hopefully, will become obsolete. But those steps, kind of pen test methodology, that's probably always going to stay the same.
Yeah, it's good you mentioned that. And yeah, this protocol you said I've never even heard of.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
blame you. You
so
don't want to know.
that's that's really good and really cool because yeah, it's if there's not a lot of documentation on it, then going back to the fundamentals is Um, it makes sense to go back there and you got to lean heavily on that. So when you're doing these like obscure protocols, do you feel like during your pen tests, do you feel slower? Like you don't make progress very fast. And is that frustrating to you? Not making as much progress as like someone pen testing in a traditional IT asset?
I would say it's not frustrating. And I don't know if it would be slower, you know, because the scope is way different. If you're pen testing, like before we started recording the show, you talked about a device that only had Bluetooth. So that's a pretty limited attack surface and limited scope. So a lot of these devices are like that. There's one port on it, or there's two ports on it, and one of them is only data out, and it's got like one-way diodes on all the connections stuff. Like there's no way to load data in through that port, so that really limits you. And because of that, the pen tests kind of go a little bit at just a different pace. But yeah,
Yeah. That's I really like how you made that analogy, how you brought up how I tested a Bluetooth device um a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago. And yeah, that I've never tested Bluetooth ever. I've never did any training on it. I was all on my own. Luckily, there was some documentation out there. Still not that much, probably way more than what you deal with. But it was like hitting a brick wall every day of that week because it was a 1 week pen test. And I was frustrated. I ain't gonna lie, like because in a traditional IT pen test, like I have my methodology, I have my tools, and this is why you don't. This is why I say don't rely on your tools because tools change, and then I get on a pen test where the tools change. I'm like, oh, well, my normal things that I normally do aren't working here, and I have to think outside the box for an entire week. And there's times where it's frustrating, but at the same time, that's where it gets fun too. So
yeah,
there's a pro and a con to both. And if you're just someone who just constantly loves to think outside the box and you love solving problems, then that's not going to be an issue with you. But for me, I'm kind of a routine type of person. So when something's kind of like out of the routine of what I normally do, I get a little frustrated, and that's when I got to take a step back and take a breather, and then I'm like, all right, we just got to approach this differently. So
yeah,
that's definitely good information for people who's trying to break into their first pen test position who hasn't really sat
yeah.
in that seat before.
And a lot of these things where there's no information like how to pen test it, there's plenty of information on like how to do QA testing on it or how it works. So RTFM, read the manual, read the white papers, white pages. But you can find really valuable things as a pen tester in those materials. Like what happens when you send in too much data and overflow the buffer? What happens when you send in too many requests? Those are things that QA probably looked at in their QA testing. And then in the documentation, it'll say things like, how does the communication protocol actually work? Is there a handshake? What data is exchanged? What's the timing between data transmissions? Like things like that would be really valuable too as a pen tester when you're looking at stuff that isn't mainstreamly hacked.
Yeah, that's really good because the white pages, the white papers, they they're not the most exciting thing to read all the time. I ain't gonna lie. Like diving into them, like you got to be in a mood. I feel like for me, anyways. All right, moving on. So you moved from SOC analysts and blue team work to pen testing. What was some of the challenges you faced going from SOC analyst to pen tester? And what advice could you give to someone who is they're in the SOC? This is what I imagine because like I know the SOC is rough
Mm-hmm.
work. I know it. I never been a SOC analyst. I just know it. But you're like staring at logs all the time. You're probably working a night shift. You have like bloodshot eyes and there's bags under your eyes and you're just like, man, I want to be a pen tester. Like, what do you say to those people?
You can do it. Honestly, like getting into IT is not the easiest thing ever. And if you can get into IT and then you get into cyber and then you get into a SOC, you're one step removed from your goal. You're almost there. You're almost a pen tester. And although like SOC analyst work isn't really the most perfect transitionary kind of thing into pen testing, is still super valuable. And I think SOC analysts or former SOC analysts make some of the best red teamers. So really understanding like um, the logs and your SIM tool and EDR and detection rules, things like that will help you avoid them as a pen tester.
Yeah, that makes sense. As a former SOC analyst being great red teamers because red teamers, they're evading detection. Whereas a pen tester, like I'm not trying to evade detection every day.
Yeah.
Which I would say, former sysadmin is definitely helping me out a ton transitioning into pen testing. But I would say going into red teaming, so because my goal is to transition from a pen tester to a red teamer, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
have some trouble bypassing those EDRs because I don't really know them in and out like a SOC analyst would. Right? I'm not writing those rules. Um, Now I did do the TRIAC SA1 certification. That's like an entry level blue teaming role, but that's still not enough for me to be like a really good SOC analyst, right? A really good SOC analyst that knows what they're doing, that writes their own rules, and is just MVP out in the field. They would probably make a really good red teamer, like you said. And I was kind of shining a light on SOC analyst work as like not so exciting, but it's super essential. Sorry, I mean SOC analysts
Yeah.
are.
Parts of it can be exciting, um, but usually something's going wrong if it's really exciting. Um, and there's definitely roles within the blue team that do translate better to pen testing. So, like threat hunting, or like one of my responsibilities when I worked in a SOC was triaging all the bug bounty submissions for our company. So, part of that was I would read up how this bug bounty hunter allegedly uh, got into one of our assets, like our website or web app or something. And then I would recreate it, and that's hands-on, that's real pen testing. So I'd say that's pretty valuable experience, and then being able to take that and fully understand how each step of it worked. Like there's nothing better to prepare you to be actually doing it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So if someone was a SOC analyst, they want to be a pen tester. What should be their number one priority? Is it certifications? Is it try hack me, hack the box? Like, what are your like top three things like you would recommend to someone that wants to make that shift? That's already a good blue teamer.
I'd say networking is probably your best, or the number one thing you should be doing. You should probably go to your local infosec conferences. My first pen testing job came from a connection, somebody that I had met, and he owned a company, and he gave me the job that I wanted, and it was awesome. But I wouldn't have gotten that if I didn't reach out, if I didn't talk to him. So I'd say networking is really valuable. And if you're already working as a SOC analyst, you can probably get an interview for like junior pen tester somewhere. So
Good to know. And for those who are not even in the field, what would you say tell them? Like, so they're trying to get their first SOC analyst position. You're starting from nothing. Like, what would you say is the number one thing to start with?
um, get some skills.
Get good.
Get good, scrub. No, I would say, yeah, try Acme is really cool. There's a ton of stuff to learn on there, and most of it is free. So can't beat that value. But I would go through Try Hack Me. I'd maybe see if you can get like a Security Plus or Pentest Plus or something like that isn't expensive. I know TCM Security, they have some very cheap hands-on pen testing certifications too that aren't super well recognized yet, but they have the potential to be. So That's
Keyword
another
yet.
option.
I think they're gonna start showing up on job postings
Yeah, I
in the
think so
future. We
too.
just gotta give it some time, but yeah, they're really good. It's solid training. I have one of their certs, and I'm working on like two others right now simultaneously.
Oh,
Why am I
nice.
studying for two certs simultaneously? I don't know. Well, hopefully I can get them.
I'm sure you can. I mean, you got quite the display behind you there.
Yeah, I got a collection for sure. They told me not to collect certifications like Pokemon cards, and I took that advice and threw it right out the window. And it's been paying off for me collecting certs. I will say that it is nice to have a lot of certs. You don't want to forget the information. Like you actually want to retain the
Hmm.
information. That's the key thing. Like you know, if you're just getting certs to stack certs, that's not good. If you get the certification and you retain that information, or at least the majority of the information, then that's the key to success for me, and that's been the number one thing that's helped me out of
I
certifications.
agree. And I think every certification has at least a little bit of value, even if the value is just to you. So for me, I have some certifications that, they're not getting me a job at this point. But it alleviated a little bit of imposter syndrome, gave me a little dopamine boost when I passed. And so to me, yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah, that's another reason why I like certs. It helps with that imposter syndrome for sure. For the final question here, do you have any additional cybersecurity hot takes or hidden wisdom you'd like to share?
Hot takes or hidden wisdom? I'd say hidden wisdom is to read the manual. It's right there for you. If you're going to pen test a firewall, read up on that firewall. If you're pen testing a piece of hardware, figure out how it works, read the manual for it, and you'll have a huge leg up.
That is some wisdom that I never heard before, but it makes so much sense. I'm so glad you mentioned that. And yeah, because sometimes the manual can be boring, and a lot of people do skip the manual. But yeah, if you dive into the manual, then you got that leg up, like you said. So thank you for providing that insight and that wisdom. That
For
was a
sure.
gold. That was a gold nugget right there.
Thank you.
All right, Noah. Well, thank you so much for your time and attention to the show. You definitely provided a lot of value to not only the audience but me as well. So thanks for being here. Where can the audience get a hold of you if they want to connect with you?
Thanks for having me. I'm on LinkedIn, Noah Pack on LinkedIn. Um, or you can find my 3D prints on printables under the account NoPack. And I can provide links and stuff for the notes below.
And audience, the best place to reach me is kyserclark.com and LinkedIn as well. Audience, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for listening. If you
Thanks
enjoyed
for
the
having
episode,
me.
you are welcome. Thanks for being here. And audience, hopefully I catch you in the next episode. Until then, this is Kyser signing off.